Waiters, what Valentine Day disasters have you witnessed? There was a note in our reservations that it was an engagement. They wanted champagne, a specific seat, bunch of other stuff. The server comes up to the table with something like, so I read, we're celebrating an engagement, congratulations. Confusion from the woman, glaring from the guy. He hadn't proposed yet. She ruined it. When I proposed to my fiancée, I kept it a very small circle of people knowing so nothing could get spoiled. My grandfather didn't know till the day of because he has dementia. Her best friend is still mad I never told her, but she had ruined a birthday surprise months prior and I couldn't trust her after that. I work with a guy who is a nice person, but pretty dumb. A couple of months ago our supervisor made up a BS reason that our team had to have a meeting. It was really just to surprise one of our co-workers with a birthday cake and a little celebration. So we're all assembled in the conference room and starting our fake meeting when this guy walked in a minute or two late. The birthday cake was still hidden and obviously not out on the table yet. Nonetheless, the first words out of his mouth were, "Did I miss the surprise already? I'm sorry. Happy birthday, Amy." This happened to me, but it was 100% my fault. I wrote in the reservation form that we were getting engaged right before coming to the restaurant, but when she took too long getting ready I figured, no big, I'll just do it after dinner. I totally forgot about the fooing reservation note, and when a manager came over to congratulate us my eyes just about bugged out of my head as I slowly mouthed no. He played it totally cool, and when she went to the bathroom later I went and found him and apologized profusely and explained what had happened. We laughed about it. GF and I ended up having a nice dinner, proposed after, and completely lost all of my words. She said yes and we are getting married next September. I found out later that she knew the entire time and the whole manager thing just made her laugh. I blew my car's tire and my friend came in to bail me out. We're both straight dudes and forgot it was Valentine's. Decided to have dinner and both were coming from important meetings, so had suits on. We didn't catch on until the end on how the entire wait staff thought we were just the cutest gay couple. When I went house hunting back in 2010, I brought an at the time friend with me who worked as a contractor. When we were looking at a particular house, my realtor had casually asked if we were life partners. It was especially funny, because he was about 20 years my senior. So it would have looked like a stereotypical gay sugar daddy type of thing. I had a couple guys sit at my bar last night for dinner. One was older and one younger, but it didn't look like too crazy a gap, and I was trying to decide if they were on a date and if I should wish them a happy Valentine's Day. They seemed close, were tasting things off each other's plate, asking about if many couples had come in for dinner. I decided they were probably together, and just before I opened my mouth to say Happy Valentine's, the younger one indicated the other and said, "I'm glad I finally got to take my dad to this place. So glad I didn't say anything." This happened to my BF as well, many years ago. He was working on a tank vessel at the time and took his cadet to port for the night as they were both off duty. They had no idea what day it was and simply asked the taxi driver to take them to a restaurant. Worst part? They were docked in Tuzla, Turkey, and this at least 10 years ago. They were brawny foreigners, so no one said or did anything in particular. But it took them half the night to figure out why so many people were giving them dirty looks. XD, Valentine's Day celebrates Saint Valentine, and in the Christian church it is his feast day. It is possible that that same tradition exists in the Eastern Orthodox Church, which used to be more popular than it is now in Turkey, but still might have passed on the tradition to the general population, the same way Valentine's Day is celebrated by non-Christians in the US and Europe, and other countries. Exactly, it's originally European and globally popular, including in countries with weak Christian influence, e.g. Japan. Given those two factors, Turkey being skipped over would have been wildly unlikely. If it wasn't imported by faith, capitalism would have done it by now. They came in at lunch the day after, so it was pretty empty, but it was still for a Valentine's Day date. They were both pretty nice at the beginning. The guy asked for a picture and whatnot. As the meal went on, the dude got progressively drunker, and by the time I brought the check out, the woman was gone. When the dude gave me his card, he said, "I'll give you a bit of advice. If you're taking a girl out to break up with her, do it at a McDonald's and not an expensive restaurant." I don't understand why some people think it's a thing to break up at a restaurant. Dump me in private, please. If we have plans to go out, dump me beforehand. Here is a bit of advice. If you are going to break up, be sure to break up in a favorite restaurant that you two dated at and that you like. She will never show up there again and it becomes yours. Or if you know you are getting dumped, then suggest someplace you hate if you can. When my one high school buddy's parents told him and his brother they were getting a divorce, they took them to a country kitchen buffet equivalent. It sucked for him obviously, but hey, nobody in my high school was ever like, let's go to divorce country kitchen buffet, so they definitely made the right choice. Just a tip if you know it's coming. These two were on a date and the guy went to go use the bathroom. The girl just up and leaves after he went to the restroom. When the guy came back, he sat around for a while until asking his waitress where she went. She replied with saying that she left. The guy then asked the waitress if she would go on a date with him. The waitress said no. Ugh, this reminded me of a time once when I was working at Denny's and a dude got into a yelling, swearing match on the phone with his girlfriend. When he hung up, he told me he just found out she was cheating on him and immediately tried to convince me to go to a movie with him. I worked at a pretty high-end Mediterranean bistro, my second Valentine's there. It was probably the busiest night I've ever worked as a server. We had reservations that booked basically the entire restaurant including the bar and patio from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. No walk-ins were to be seated unless a reservation was cancelled, or someone with a reservation didn't show up. Most of the customers were pretty understanding and either waited or simply left. One dude however kept pushing and pushing, asking every 10 minutes how much longer until he is seated, constantly saying how he is a regular customer, and how his date is going to be there at 7, he got there at 6. We insisted that once a table was available, and all the customers before him were seated, he would get a table, but because the amount of reservations we couldn't guarantee he would even get a table at all. At about 6:50 the guy loses it, fast walks up to the hostess stand where the reservation book is, grabs the reservation book and practically runs out the front door. Now everything is going to complete shit because the only copy of the reservations for the night that is barely half over is gone. Two of the owners ran outside to follow the guy and try and get the book back, but by the time they got out he had already left the parking lot. Even better is, 2 hours later, chaos is still running rampant and the dude shows back up saying he has a reservation for 2. 3 of the 5 of the owners, all brothers, escorted the dude and his date out to the parking lot and banned him from the restaurant permanently. They even took a picture of him and posted it in the window saying, "Do not serve this man." TL, Dr. Salty dude without reservation steals reservation book and then tries to come back later. Edit, if anyone wants to use this for a sitcom feel free, just let me reprise my role as the waiter and we can call it even. All I can picture is this dude thinking that he can get his way by essentially reenacting the restaurant version of that joke, urban legend with the university student who finishes his exam late, and when the proctor won't accept it, the student asks, "Do you know who I am?" Then, when told no, he grabs the stack of exam booklets and flings them into the air and runs out. I had a Section 1V day that had a marriage proposal, a 40th anniversary, and a breakup all at the same time. The breakup was the worst. The guy brought his high-class date a gift, a mini ceramic bear holding balloons. He presented it when I was at the table and she looked at it like it was a hot turd. I just knew this was not going to end well. She left at the end of the meal and must have said something because he stayed at the table for another 40 minutes, head down and crying. I felt bad. He saw the celebrations going on at the other tables, not waitstaff, but I used to work front desk at a hotel. One Valentine's Day I was working the night shift, and this woman comes down with a cut above her eye looking like she just went a few rounds in the ring with a boxer. Woman starts sobbing and asks us to call the coos, which we do immediately. Turns out this girl's boyfriend just beat the shit out of her during a fight, And from what I could tell, this probably wasn't the first time. So after the cops show up and haul the dude off, my manager offers her a different room on comp as we need to leave the guy's stuff where it is for him to pick up the next day. She accepts, and I go up with the woman to help her collect her stuff and move to the new room. There were a bunch of bottles of alcohol in the room, and she donated them to the front desk staff. I got a bottle of Hypnotic, and some vodka. Manager got a bottle of Patron. Cherry on top of everything, the dude's wife called later that night saying someone had stolen his card as he was out of town on a business trip. Never one to defend an abuser, I told her where she could find her husband. Fun times. Not a waiter, but I was a pastry chef at this big resort in Cape Cod. We got a special order from this guy who was coming in for his anniversary, Valentine's Day. He wanted his dessert to have "Will you marry me?" written on it so he could pop the question when it came out. He called ahead to the front and back kitchen, even came in himself that morning to make sure it was good to go. The whole crew was behind him. We had cooked all night coming in. He asked if it had happened yet. I wrote the inscription on the plate and dressed it to the nines with gold leaf and expensive chocolate. I'm taking a picture of the plate just before it's set to go out and notice our head waiter come in with a weird look on his face. He says plainly they don't need it. She broke up with him before the entrees hit the table. I was eating in a fine dining establishment, Chili's, several years ago. In the next booth was a really young guy who had a big bunch of roses on the seat next to him. He kept looking at his watch, looking at the roses, and popping open a ring box for a peek at the ring. He did this for a half hour or so, then began calling and texting someone, presumably his girlfriend, over and over. As we were waiting for our check, he hands my wife the roses, mumbled something, and walked out. Poor guy. Edit. I don't consider Chili's a fine dining experience. My wife and I had done some shopping and stopped off for a burger and beer afterwards. A guy proposed to his girlfriend and she said no. The guy threw his arms up and ran out of the building. Later, while waiting for someone to pick her up, she told us it was completely out of the blue, because they'd only been dating for a few months. Another V-Day. A guy raised a huge fuss over the fact that we wouldn't serve liquor to his underage girlfriend. I'm certain you mean he threw up his hands momentarily in exasperation, but I can't help picturing him running out of the restaurant arms straight up Kermit the Frog style. 16 years in hospitality gives you some good stories. The most awkward, my first job as a waitress. A guy wanted to propose to his girlfriend. He came in 2 months before to book and had everything figured out. He planned to pop the question during dessert. We had champagne, balloons and sparklers prepped for the big moment. The time comes, he drops to one knee, gives a speech about his love for her. He asks, she says no, puts the ring in her bag, finishes her dessert and leaves. Quite possibly the most awkward thing I have had to witness, alongside around 200 other people. The manager gave him everything for free. He felt that bad for him. Cringed inside every time I saw him after that. The most fed up, I was working as a duty manager and one of the tills kept dropping off the network. As I was trying to fix it, I could clearly hear the conversation of the table by the waiter's station. It started out sweet enough with her excitedly telling him she was pregnant. He went quiet and didn't say anything for a bit and then asked her what the plan was. She said she was keeping the baby. He said he didn't want kids and had told her this. She got upset and said she thought he'd be happy and change his mind when he found out. By this point I've fixed the till, but am unable to step away from this car crash. Turns out she stopped taking the pill without telling him, thinking she could turn him around. He said he knew she could be a little nuts sometimes, but this was next level. He told her it was over and she could send someone to collect her things as he wanted nothing more to do with her. He called me over to pay the bill and just left. The guy never even shouted, he just calmly went through this and noped out of there. I couldn't even look her in the eye, just left her to leave in her own time. The funniest, managing hotel room service where there was a Valentine's package that included getting each course of the special menu delivered to your room. More than a few couples thought it was a good idea to call for the next course and then start having to help with deliveries as reception foo ate up the bookings. I had the privilege of people answering the door naked, seeing toys strewn around and one where the other members of the threesome were carrying on in the background. After complaints of similar instances from my team, I had to take action. I ended up having to call the offending guests and tell them if they could not respect my team by answering the door in at least a closed dressing gown, they could come down and collect the rest of their meal from the restaurant. Bonus from the same night, had to call an ambulance for a woman with a dislocated shoulder. The guy admitted that they were trying to recreate a bukkake type scene in the shower using conditioner as the cum. He slipped in the conditioner and fell on her. I don't get how people still think trapping someone with a baby is a good idea. Some people are perfectly happy without kids. Like WTF edit, wow, this comment blew up. I didn't mean it as an attack on women and either, I just meant as woman, I could never see the benefit of this. You are tricking your partner and breaking their trust. All in all, a bad idea. Check out our other videos and subscribe and leave your suggestions and experiences in the comments below. Have a great day.